Hello, everyone. This is Tommi Vincent, your host of In Her Words podcast. And I am delighted today to have joining us at the table, Lori Zukin. Lori is the CEO and founder of Zukin Leadership. She works primarily with C-suite executives. Her client base is broad and covers a range of sectors, including technology, healthcare, sports, finance, and consulting. Lori is a faculty member at Georgetown University's Institute for Transformational Leadership and at Corinthus Inc., teaching team coaching. Additionally, she teaches courses at the Simon Sinek platform. Lori, welcome to the In Her Words table. I am grateful that you are taking time to stay a while with me.
I am so honored, and I love that I get to stay a while and go deeply with you, Tommi. It's not just one of those quick things. The stay a while words resonate with me. So it's perfect. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So my very first question for you, in your own words, will you please tell us who is Lori Zukin?
Well, thank you for the question, first of all, Tommi. And I could start with my professional stuff, but really, and maybe it is actually my professional stuff as I answer this question. I am still figuring out who I am. I'm 54 years old, just turned 54, and I am still becoming me. In fact, I remember listening to a podcast several years ago that we are not simply human beings, we are human becomings. And I love that I get to say I'm still becoming, and that is part of the work that I get to do with my clients, is support them in figuring out who they are and who they are becoming. And I, through my own coaching work, and as an executive coach, I believe I should have a coach. And through my therapy, I'm still figuring that out. Now, that said, I am a mom. I am a wife. I have two wonderful boys. I love to explore human connection. And I love to work with leaders who want to look inside themselves and improve the way that they lead and the way that they be with people and continue to grow. So I'll stop there for now. Yeah.
Something you said, Lori, I really like it because it is indicating that as people, we have the ability to continue to evolve and better ourselves. And you use the word becoming, which means that it's a constant. And when we apply some life lessons, when we do some hard work, like I like to call it, and, you know, if you have a coach, if you have a therapist, there's a lot of individuals who sow into us, important to us, that will allow for us to continue the transformation and become. And I really love that, because I think it's important for people to understand that we don't have to accept where we are and put a period on that. We can literally just continue to grow that. And it's like an evolving run-on sentence with periodic commas, semicolons, you know, as we're journeying on through this road called life.
Beautiful. Thank you. And one of the things that I've learned through my coach training is that there might have been periods where others were writing that story for me. And a shift for me was to be able to write my own story. And I think there are times in life where you do have others write your own story, and that makes sense. But a real shift happened for me. And that's actually when I started my own business where, I can actually write this next chapter. And that was empowering in so many ways for me. And I hope that for a lot of the people who I work with.
You're speaking my language. I
Yeah.
am an advocate for snatching the pen back. Snatch the pen back.
Right.
You are the main character in your own story. And yeah, other people may have had authorship at some point in time. And that is part of the process. There are times when the chapter needs to end and a new chapter needs to begin. And when you recognize that you have the authority over the pen and you are the author of the story of your life, the story now becomes whatever you want it to be. It's just totally up to you on how you're going to shape that narrative. But it's the understanding that you have the power to author your own story.
Absolutely. And I know we can sit here and talk about it. It's not always easy to talk about, but it's easier to talk about. But the doing of it and the being in it is the hard work. One of the things that I teach in my leadership programs and then also work on with my clients is, and this might sound weird, and the first time I heard it, it was actually painful for me, is the gift of resentment. My coach was listening to me complain quite a bit about the same topic. And she said, Lori, I want you to listen to yourself and I want you to look at that resentment as a gift. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it got
that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, it got frustrating to me. And she said, now, not everything in the world for which you have resentment is this true for? But many things that you're complaining about, it could be a request that you have inside of you that you haven't expressed or you haven't expressed clearly. So I want you to take a step back and think about this complaint that you have. What do you really want? And then what requests do you have around that want that you might not be making or you might not be making clearly? Mm-hmm. And so that was pretty powerful for me. Mm-hmm. Not easy. And it took a lot of reflection because sometimes it's easier to complain. And again, there are a lot of things in the world that we have absolutely no control over, but the things that are close to us, and usually that's a close relationship at work, at home, family, those kinds of things. So I think about that a lot. And there's a lot of times when we make unclear requests. Hey, honey, there's no milk in the fridge. You know, that's a simple and easy one. It's not really a clear request. That's a fact. In my mind, I want milk. In, their mind. Right. Just the fact. So.
That was so good, Lori. So can you share with us how you define leadership?
Yeah. So first, I want to say that you can be a leader no matter who you are or where you are in an organization. It is about having influence in a positive way on others. You can't be a leader without followers. There are characteristics of leaders. The one that I would say is most important, and by leadership, I do mean positive leadership. And we could have a whole conversation about not good, but I want to focus on the good. Self-awareness is in my mind and in the research, is the key to effective leadership, because no one is perfect. Mm-hmm. If you're self-aware, then you're willing to look at those imperfections and work on yourself and work on those others who work with you on what could I be doing better? Where are my strengths and how do I leverage those? And what are my areas of development? And does it make sense for me to develop those or have others fill in those gaps? It doesn't always have to be that I have to work on everything, because if I work on everything, I don't get a chance to leverage all of those strengths. The quarterback shouldn't be and I'm going to forget even the position that my son was. He was the, oh my gosh, I can't even, he, shouldn't be playing the other positions on the field.
Yeah. On offense. Mm-hmm.
On offense. Yeah. But just broadly offense. Right. They should be focusing on their position and their strengths. I work right now, and I'm. This is a long answer. I hope that's okay. But I work right now with a leader who is absolutely visionary and creative, and not as much into the details. If we focus so much on him reading all the spreadsheets, he wouldn't take the organization to the next level where they need to go. So let's allow him to focus on his strengths and find others who can fill in the details. So what is leadership? It's about self-awareness. It's about humility. It's about having followers who trust you. It's about sometimes leading from the front and sometimes leading from the back, meaning staying silent and letting others come in. It's about knowing different styles and ways of leading, sometimes being a little bit more directive because an answer is needed in an emergency, and sometimes being a little more consensus driven because this is a big change and we all need to do it together and be in agreement. And again, knowing oneself and at least being willing to work on oneself and becoming and being okay with the becoming and continuous evolution of oneself.
Is it, in your opinion, can everyone be a leader?
I think that in their own way. I don't think that everyone can lead a large organization. I don't think everyone can lead a movement. I do think that everyone has the capacity to lead something. And I think it takes work.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that they need to have self-awareness. And if they have that, they can lead. The factor, though, is I don't think everyone can lead large groups or large movements.
So I'm going to take that and I'm going to pull that into self. And we have a responsibility to ourselves to, and I liken it to being the CEO of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some words of wisdom? Because even if you're not developed to be a leader of a movement, a leader of an organization, you have a responsibility to yourself. You might not at this point in time have the vision for what it is you desire to accomplish in life. But when you get a picture, you have to lead yourself to do the things necessary to get to that place in life. So, what are some words of wisdom you can share to assist us with owning and leading ourselves in a meaningful direction?
What a beautiful question. And, you know, as you asked me the question before that, it got me thinking, you know, can anyone be a leader? And what I didn't say is yes, you know, you can lead yourself. So, words of wisdom. You know, I'm smiling as I think about the answer to that. And because I want it to come to me rather than, oh, think about all the research and all of that.
Yeah.
And the thing that comes to me instead of me thinking about all the research is to slow down. And the reason I say that is because I find that when I am working with my clients and we slow down together, the wisdom of the self comes through. Almost like I just did with you. In this moment, when you asked me that question, I felt a little bit nervous, like I want to have the right answer for Tommi. And I should know I have a doctorate in industrial psychology. There's a lot of research out there on the best definition of leadership and all this wisdom. But it didn't come to me right away. And I took a deep breath and I slowed down. And that's actually when the answer comes. And I think we need to do more of that with each other and individually. And we're all so busy trying to be something that others tell us to be. And we frequently don't take the time to just be. Or develop a close relationship with a coach, with a therapist, with a good friend. And just be. And in those moments when we can just be, the wisdom comes out. And I feel so fortunate to witness some of that in my coaching work. So it's not about that there's a problem to solve and, hey, coach, you know, tell me, what should I do? The answer is with you. And let's sit with it for a few minutes together.
It goes back to what you talked about in regards to our ability to write our own story.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you know, you have an acquired knowledge and you have education and you have research and all of the things that beyond qualify you to be the dynamic executive coach that you are, leadership coach that you are. Everyone doesn't have access to that same information because our paths, you know, have gone in different directions. And at the end of the day, we're still responsible for ourselves. And so in practical terms, I loved how you talked about writing your story. And that's something that I can relate to, that the listeners can relate to. And even the individuals that you're coaching and you're teaching them and pulling them into their leadership and evolving them into their leadership, that is something that when visually you can picture, man, I can write my own story. And so it's those pieces and those things like that that allow for everybody to understand the power of you and the power of, you know, developing yourself into the CEO of you, like I like to say.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. And when you have that space with someone else or yourself to just be you and write your own story, you start to show up differently. You start to lead differently. You start to be differently. People notice it. It was actually funny after I went through my coach training. That was transformational for me. Just the training. You really had to go through a lot of your own work to become a coach. I remember going back to work and people telling me, you look different. You actually look different. I had a few friends say that to me, and I didn't really realize it, but I was holding myself differently. It was kind of wild. So, yeah.
So in that vein, in the process of you coaching others, and you just talked about how you're just when you went through your program, how there was just for yourself, a change in you. What are a few of the greatest revelations that you got for yourself while you were actually coaching someone else?
I love that. And I love that you asked that because I learn while I coach others. So it's not just, and that's why I love the work. Okay, one is that our way of being is contagious. So if I am kind of calm, which I'm not always, but and my client is, coming out of a meeting and they're really, hyped up and, hey, Lori, I want to talk to you about this and this and this and this and this. And I slow down and ask, or I am already slow or whatever it is. And I just ask some questions like this. They will also slow down. Now, not always, but it can create a just like a newer way of being. So our state of mind is contagious, right? Our way of being can be contagious. Now it can work the other way too. And so I have to watch myself and be intentional about kind of having that calm state of mind so that I can be in service to them. And there are times when it doesn't work. But that's been an interesting thing to work with, is just our way of being, our state of mind, and how that impacts the other. The other is a continuous process of problem solving versus living in the complexity of the world. So, hey, Lori, I want to talk to you about what should I do about this job, or I'm dealing with this problem with this employee or whatever it is. What should I do? Sometimes, and many times, especially in this world we're living in now, it's not about a problem to be solved. It's about a complexity to be dealing with, to be navigating. It's a both and, it's a polarity. How do we maximize the benefits of structure and flexibility? How do we maximize the benefits of working on self and organization and all of those things? So problem and complexity, that's another thing that I work on, an insight that I just see more and more. Another insight. Another thing that I just love to work on with people is changing mindset, like limiting beliefs. Someone said something today in a session, and they heard it as X, and they could have easily heard it as Y. They heard it as they're defining me as X, and they could have heard it as they're defining that person as Y. And helping them to see that was so... It was powerful for them to see that that was a limiting belief, but it was also powerful for me to hear that aha in them. And so the shift in mindset, I think, is a neat thing that's been helpful for me as well. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that answered your question. I feel like that was more about things I'm seeing than insights I'm getting.
I can only imagine that if you're seeing it, that it internally is impacting you as well, in those 3 areas that you talked about. I'm curious, yes, with your coaching, the C-suite executives that you work with, and we mentioned in your introduction that you work across a wide variety of spectrums. Mm-hmm. Specific to sports, mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there any aspects of the executives that you coach in sports that are unique to that sector versus the other sectors that you work with?
Yeah, great question. I also want to go back to just what you said for a second. Those insights, they mm-hmm. do help me too, because I have my own limiting beliefs sometimes. Yeah. Right. I have my own state of mind that I have to work on. All those things that are insights that I share with others, or that questions I ask others, I have to ask myself. So mm-hmm. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
So things that are unique, I would say, I don't know if they're as unique, but they provide more analogies. So how does this show up, or how did this show up on the field? One that I love to talk about is the balcony and the dance floor. And I talk about this across industries, but we can think about, okay, so when you're playing football, mm-hmm. you're playing on Sunday, and then you watch film on Monday. When you get to watch film, or if you were in the stadium watching the game, you get a mm-hmm. whole new perspective on that play. If you're on the field, you just see this one perspective, this one lens. Mm-hmm. Or if you're in the stadium, you get to see the whole field. Now think about that from a leadership perspective. Are you on the dance floor dancing or playing on the field? Or are you on the balcony getting to watch all of the movement that's happening? And having that comparison has been really neat to think about. At what point as a leader do I get on the balcony and just take a look at the big picture? And at what point do I get on the dance floor and play the game and make the moves? And as you get more senior, you're going to want to get on the balcony more, but you can't get on the balcony so much that you don't have a sense of what's happening on the dance floor. But when I'm talking to players or former players, it's a really fun analogy to think about. Okay, when you're on the field, you get to see just, this limited view, but then when you get to watch film, you get the whole field. And then instead of just thinking about how I threw the ball or caught the ball, when I watch film, maybe I now have this, instead of changing how I catch the ball, mm-hmm. and we could just continue practicing throwing and catching and throwing and catching to make it better. Now I have a whole new lens to see the field. Maybe there's a whole different play that we should do that we didn't even think about before. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so if you think about that from a leadership perspective, what if instead of thinking about this issue over and over again and thinking about this problem over and over again, I do something totally different? I'm overthinking it. I take a break and I go outside and I get an insight. That's just a new lens, right? Or if I'm overthinking it, what if I start to feel about it? How do I feel about it? Maybe that'll give me a different perspective to solve the problem. So I'm not sure if this is making sense, but I think about this framework called observer, action, results that I learned in Georgetown. Okay? So you have your action and you have your results. If our results aren't working well, we try to change our action. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But if we change the observer who we are, then we have a whole new set of actions available to us that weren't previously available. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We change our view of it. We change our mindset on it. But if we always look at the problem in the same way, much like Einstein has said, you know, if you change the way we're trying to solve problems with the same thinking that caused them. Right. So let's just change the way we're thinking, but it's not just about thinking. It's about feeling. It's about, you know, let's look at things totally differently. Then we have a whole new set of actions that weren't available to us. Or if we think that the problem is that the guy's throwing the ball the wrong way, well, maybe if we look at the whole field, we see that there's something else going on the field. That's not really about it. Maybe we didn't communicate X or Y or Z well about the whole team. So that took a long time to describe it, but hopefully that made sense. So there's ways to apply it. So what's different is the analogies. The analogies are fun. And that's just one of many. The both and analogy is a lot of fun. I play around with polarity thinking a lot. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move to our next segment. And this segment is titled, I Am Bringing Her to the Table with Me. And Lori, this is your opportunity to give another woman her verbal flowers, because you know that you are not where you are today in your career without her fingerprint on your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will, I would love to give flowers to Sandy Mobley, because Sandy Mobley was my first coach when I got my first big promotion at Booz Allen Hamilton a gazillion years ago. And she interviewed a number of people as part of a 360 assessment and came back to me and she said, the people love the way you lead, and I just have this sense that you would make a good coach. So I think you should go to Georgetown and check it out. And she's the person that suggested that I go along this path, and it became the thing that I absolutely love to do. And she and I even did a presentation a few years later called Love in the Bottom Line, and it has become my motto. So I do thank her, but thanking her publicly on this podcast feels good. So I love that question.
Yeah, that's amazing. She literally changed the trajectory of your life.
She did. I was
That's
interested
amazing.
in leadership, but not in coaching specifically until I met her. So I have her to thank.
Okay, so now we'll go into our final segment, and it is Food is Love. This is the favorite part of the conversation for me because food is how I love people to life. And so I have a series of questions that I'm going to ask. And our first one is, what food best describes your personality and why?
Okay. So am I allowed to have two if I go a little more quickly? I'll
Listen,
go
I'm
with it.
curious now. I want to hear the two.
Great. All right. So salad, which might sound boring, but the reason I say that is because, like, at the core, salad is kind of the same. So I'll say at my core, I am who I am, though there's room for creativity. And so when I work with people, I meet them where they are. I try to meet them where they are. But then there's room for like more creativity or doing what's needed for each person. So a salad has its core, but then you can add the protein and you can add the vegetables, and it can be a whole meal, or it can just be a little, side thing that you start before another meal. So it's like that. It is what it is, but then there's flexibility to it too. So I am who I am, but there's, other stuff that you can add depending on what you pair it with or what it goes with. And if you know me well, I eat a lot of different kinds of salads and never get bored of them. But so that's the other. The second is matzo ball soup. And that is because, number one, it's a Jewish thing, and I'm Jewish. It's comforting and warm, so I like to think of myself as a warm person. It's casual and simple, and at my core, I'm pretty just casual. I like to be around. I'd like to walk around in flip-flops and shorts, but you can also dress it up, and I like to dress up too. You can dress it up in a fancy, the china dishes, etc., that you serve on a nice holiday. So that's why I do. So like you, I think food is a love language.
Has food ever been healing for you?
Yeah, I mean, times when I've come back from a hard day's work or from, a medical procedure, and my hubby just makes like a great omelet on a bagel for me. And so it's the fact that he's taken the time to do that. And that it's just a comforting food. So yeah, just knowing that that's there, and he's done that for me. And he'll like ask me on the way home, hey, what do you want? Just that omelet that you make with cheese and maybe some avocado on a bagel. Yeah.
That's being fed in more ways than one. It's like food for your soul, and then it's nourishment for your body.
Exactly.
I love that. Does your family have an heirloom recipe that's been passed down from generation to generation?
My Aunt Sadie's apple cake. So this is my grandmother's sister, and I can even see my grandmother's writing of the recipe. Like I can see her handwriting as I describe that to you. Now we've modified it since then, but yes, my mom makes it all the time.
That sounds delicious.
Yes.
So, Lori, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I'm so grateful that you took time out of your schedule to join me at the In Her Words table, and you stayed a while with me. How can people find you and, see some of the things that you're working on? And potentially there could be someone listening who is looking for a leadership coach and is in need of your services. So where can they find you?
Thank you so much for asking. So my website is simple. It's zukinleadership.com, Zukin leadership. And they can reach me via email at lori@zukinleadership.com. I am also on LinkedIn, so they should feel free to reach out. And I love staying a while with people and with you and connecting. So thank you.
Absolutely. You are welcome anytime. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Come on and stay a while.